education is a wonderful thing. I hope we'll all agree on that. I've spent my entire working life involved in it. Half of it working in that very lovely special school, Mark College, that Kabir arrived in 1990. And one of the things I had to face was that at the age of 11, which was when children arrived at Mark College, they'd had 6 years of education already. And for them, in general, it had not been a wonderful thing. Once we decided that everyone needed to be educated, we created a situation which hadn't existed before, which was that we told everyone they had to become literate. And we try and do that very, very early on. Nowadays, in the UK, children of 3 are being started on the process of becoming literate. I think that's far too early. I wish we would leave them alone for quite a bit longer than that. But literacy is important, of course. I'm an English teacher. I'm not going to turn around and say I've been wasting everyone's time my entire professional life. But if we accept the idea of dyslexia, and after working for over 20 years, I get very angry when I hear some people challenging the idea of dyslexia and saying, it doesn't exist. Well, come and work with me for 3 weeks and then say it again, if you can, because I don't think you'll be able to. The problem is that if we offer to everyone this wonderful thing of education and say that very early on they've got to become literate, what we're actually offering to a large number of children is the opportunity to fail. And that is something pretty horrible to do to anyone. I don't want anyone to take me out of here and say, you're going to do something and I'm not giving you any choice about it, and you're going to spend something like the next 12 years of your life doing it. And then when I start doing it, I can't do it. I'm useless at it. What a horrible experience. And of course, I'm an adult, and I've got lots of other experiences which tell me I'm not really utterly useless. So, when we take children into education, want to prove to them, through the process that we take them through, that they are talented, that they are able. That's the whole point. It sometimes feels like we lose sight of that. We draw these children in and then subject them to failure. I'm here today to talk to you about an intervention that is Kabir's idea, what he wants to see happen. And I feel personally very, very lucky that I've been asked to be involved in this process. It's exciting. It feels very positive. And I'm here today to talk to you about the results that we have achieved in the first school that we got involved in Goa. I worked, as I've said, for over 20 years with dyslexic children as an English teacher, and I learned very quickly that assistive technology could make a difference. I sat with a boy in the first few months I worked in Mark College who had typed out a longish piece of work on an Amstrad word processor. Now, unless you're as old as me, you probably no idea what an Amstrad word processor was, but it was an early form of a computer that did just that, word processing. When we had this piece of work, I said to him, "Should we spell check it?" And this shows you how long ago this was. He looked at me in puzzlement. What was I talking about? So I demonstrated to him. And the look on his face was like I was a magician. I just waved my wand and done something unbelievably magical. And that, of course, taught me I need to be doing this. This is important. And over those 20 years, as technology became more excitingly powerful, I was able to experiment and develop ways of using it. So, today I'm going to ask you to think of assistive technology as a tool that you hand to your learner. It's not a teacher, it's a tool. Now, I watched 4 days ago, a man in a garage mend a puncture on Kabir's car. He couldn't have done that job without tools. He had to use a jack to lift the car up. Well, I suppose he could have got 6 very strong men and told them to do it, but the tool was much better. He had to have a wrench to loosen the nuts on the wheel, and in fact they were done so tight he couldn't manage it with the wrench. So being an intelligent workman, he went away and got an extension in terms of a bit of metal piping, put it over the wrench and stamped on it, and it worked. So he adapted his tool because he knew what he was doing. He couldn't have done a very simple job, change a wheel on a car, without tools. And what I'm hoping you will accept in what I say today is that we need to give tools to these learners who are struggling to do something that we tell them not just is a good thing to learn. Actually, the message from school is you're no good at school unless you can learn this. And the further you go into schooling, the worse in one sense it gets if you can't read, if you can't write. So this tool is at heart very simple. It's called text-to-speech. I hope all of you know what I'm talking about, but just the computer's capacity to read aloud to you any words on the screen so that you can hear them as well as see them. It's very simple in a sense, but it allows someone who struggles with that decoding, the looking at the symbol and understanding its relationship with sound and being able to string sounds together and convert them into words. And very, very importantly, it's a tool. Put it into their hands, now it's under their control. Text-to-speech has been around for 25 years now. I remember my excitement when I first saw it in operation. A guy called Skip Stahl appeared in Sunset from Boston in the US and showed us that Mac computers could read words aloud. And I knew I had to have it. It had to be in my armoury. Now, why doesn't every teacher feel like that now? I don't know. It's something that puzzles and frustrates me. Because I knew instantly I had to have it. And I was very, very lucky. Steve sent me off to America to learn about it, and I was able to bring it back and use it with my children. I think we need to be offering this tool to learners the moment they have any difficulty with reading. One of my frustrations, and I hear it from teachers, in my view, far too often, is shouldn't we wait? No, don't wait. Very importantly, this tool is not there to provide content. There are computer-based programs to help with reading, which come with lots of reading material. That was not our idea, and I think there are important reasons why this is different and better in some ways. The content should be provided by the teacher. So it remains absolutely tied in to the work that the child is doing in class. We've run this at a school in Goa for between 3 and 4 years now. Just to tell you a little bit about the school, it's privately owned. The children there are between class 1 and class 4. There are 26 children equally split between boys and girls in each class. There are 2 classes in each year. How do the children get there? Well, if their parents work for the company that owns the school, they have first claim on places. If you've got a brother or sister at the school already, then you get preferential treatment. But in every other respect, the children who get there aren't selected on any basis of intellectual ability or anything like that. In fact, they get there by lottery. Last year, there were 120 families who wanted the places that were there, and so they apply, their name is drawn out, and if they're lucky, they're in. Now, this school has a very particular approach to reading, and I think it's important for explaining what we've done there to understand it. They have a very clear policy, which is that teaching of reading is going to be done through sight words. Now, from everything you've been hearing earlier this morning, there should at this point presumably be a sharp intake of breath and horrified looks and saying, how dare they? Well, at the moment in the UK, phonics is everything. And so if I, as a teacher, say, actually I want to use sight words, I would be a pariah in UK schools. Is this school doing it all wrong? I don't know. I've had a lengthy discussion with the school owner, the guy who runs the school, about the fact that I think they should also be using phonics. I'm not going to convert him, is the truth, but he has bent very slightly in the direction of phonics. However, practicing in classroom at the moment is that doesn't get mentioned. Instead, they have a scheme of teaching reading through sight words. In class 1, that means you're expected to learn 100 a month. In class 2, it goes up to 200. So very roughly, you get 3,000 sight words to learn in your first 2 years in school. And that's a combination of basic common words and specific words that will be coming up in the work they're doing that month. There is, of course, reading going on in classrooms in terms of passages that they study together, and those are graded from easy to getting more and more difficult. And in class 3 and 4, the school uses books, whole books, quite demanding whole books, which they study together. We had to agree a purpose for our intervention, and so in discussion with the teachers, their first concern was, well, they're all supposed to be learning 100 words a month. We have children who don't do that. In fact, at the end of the month, the worst results will be in single figures. So our first aim was to say, so what can we do about that? We created simple Word documents with a selection, not all 100 at once, of that month's words, and they were displayed so that they were seen individually, not a long list you saw all at the same time. The software we're using is called Clara Read, and what the learner is enabled to do is select the individual word and get feedback through the headphones they're wearing as to what that word is. They are encouraged to voice in response. So there's the word, I've heard the word, I've said the word, and you can see there's a multisensory element to what's going on there. Very importantly, because they're in control, they can repeat that as many times as they like. Now, if I'm a 6-year-old sitting with my teacher, and I say, what's that word? And she tells me, am I going to ask her again? And again, and again, and again? No, not likely. I'm going to shut up. But we watch children ask the computer again, and again, and again. We've developed refinements, some of which are used, like adding a picture to the word, so there's a visual clue there, to perhaps add a sentence with the word in context, so that meaning and the experience of that word in a meaningful context can be experienced. We talked about sometimes adding a clue sentence, which you listen to first, to see if that prompts you to say, that's what that word is. And another form of reinforcement to then say, now type the word. And Clara Read will tell you each letter you just typed in your ear, and then when you've completed the word and press the space bar, you'll hear whether you've actually typed the word. We're able to use a voice, which is an Indian English female voice called Sangeeta. And she's kind of developed a personality as far as the children are concerned, and they will talk about they're going to work with Sangeeta. They're given 2 sessions a week of 15 minutes in class 1 and 2. So in a month, that builds up to about 2 hours of individual reinforcement of the learning that they're being asked to do in class. I think that's a lot and very important. I'm sorry you're probably not going to be able to see the numbers up here. No, it doesn't look like I'm going to get a red spot either. So let me just explain that this was an early little bit of evidence. It's nothing very complex, but what the teachers of Class 1 and Class 2 showed to us was the results they were getting between September and January with some of the children who were using Clara Reid to support their learning of sight words. And you can perhaps see, let's take the last one, 1A. In September, 11 words before using Clara Reid, 82 afterwards. In October, 20 words before, 59 afterwards. November, December, 10 words before, 47 afterwards. And January, 20 before, 51 afterwards. And that kind of pattern, that ability to jump ahead from what they can achieve without the help to what they can achieve with it, was normal. That was what we were seeing. Of course, the scale of improvement is not in any way uniform. But what teachers were seeing and reporting back to us was growing confidence in the children. And what I think was so important, is so important in this form of intervention, the children were experiencing helping themselves. Numbers involved? Well, right at the start, out of 26 children, the teacher might get 18 to use Clara. But those numbers normally drop very fast, and during Class 1 it's likely to settle down nearer 8 to 10 out of 26, and then that will gradually ease. But we'll expect in any class of 26 children, about 20% of them to continue to use this for 2 to 3 years. So one of the things I want to stress to you is the length of this intervention. A lot of the time, we'd all love a quick fix. This isn't going to be a quick fix for those who really do struggle with reading. We've developed other things to do. So, I mentioned they will read passages together, and we discussed and put those on computer, and talked about the possibility of offering the child the chance to go through that passage before they ever met it in class, as well as the opportunity to get reinforcement after. And the thinking behind, you go and read that before we study it in class, was to try and enable the child to come back into being involved. So that when the passage was introduced in class, instead of feeling in any way excluded, the child could feel included. The teachers raised the thought that in maths and science, perhaps language was getting in the way of maths and in the way of science. So they came up with the idea of putting any maths word problems onto a computer, and then saying to children who seem to be struggling with word problems, go and do it on the computer. And of course, that very quickly isolated those who were actually having problems with the maths from those who were having problems with the reading. And something similar in science. Further intervention, I mentioned reading books in class 3 and 4. So the school has been able to put these books entirely onto computer using what's called OCR software, optical character recognition software, which again is part of Clara Reid's provision. Now, instead of 2 sessions of 15 minutes a week, they give them 45 minutes once a week, and the idea is that they can go away and reread the chapter or even read ahead if they want to, using Clara. By this time, we're hoping that they will have developed their own individual way of using the software, that they've developed how the tool is employed. So, for some, they will want whole sentences read to them, but others, they'll read most of that text themselves and just get Clara to join in when they come across a word that they're not certain. Some will go on voicing, others will choose not to. Clara highlights words as it reads them to you, and the way in which it highlights can be varied, both in terms of whether it highlights a single word, a single sentence, a single paragraph, and what colours it employs, both for the words and a colour behind the words, if that helps. Again, the encouragement is that the user, the learner, determines what feels best for them in something like that. What we want them to do is to feel they are in control. Now I'm going to show you two tables. Again, I apologise about the fact that if you're sitting at the back of the room, you may find this difficult to see. But what we've compiled recently, I was 2 weeks ago talking to the teachers in Goa in preparation for this talk, and that's my excuse for why in the booklet you haven't got this presentation. I'm sorry, but it is brand new, so you'll have to ask me for a copy later on if you want one. So, just a word of explanation. When you look at the tables, there's reference to vocabulary, meaning those sight words, and then there's reference to reading text. And the way in which that is graded between an A and a D is that each individual child is asked to read two passages, one which they'll be familiar with, one they've never seen before, and asked, they have to read that out loud to the teacher, and then ask about their understanding of what they've just read. So, we've got 2 years of students. This first group, we've got the measures in class 1, class 2, and class 3. And we've got the total number of sight words they were able to deal with in class 1 and class 2, and the grade they were given for text reading in all 3 years. And hopefully you can see things are getting better as we go through. Similarly, for a group where we've got the results from class 2, 3, and 4. And what becomes clear is that everyone, and these are the children who were struggling with reading, not the rest of the children. We're talking about just the ones who were struggling. Every one of them is now reading competently. So here's what for me is hugely exciting, that the teachers are telling us everyone is reading. And that, given we've only had it in there for 3 years, so the earlier groups didn't have it right from class 1, they are finding that the point in their time in the school at which everyone now doesn't need Clara, it's getting early. So it's come back from halfway through class 4 to the end of class 3, and now the current class 3 teachers were telling me a couple of weeks ago, we think they're all going to be finished with it halfway through class 3. So what conclusions do I think you can draw from this? When you undertake a long-term intervention, one of the problems is it's so difficult to put your hand on your heart and say, I know my intervention had that effect. Because, of course, lots of other things are going on, and very, very importantly, the teaching of reading has been going on in this school. They haven't handed over to this intervention. So, how do we know with something as complex as the development of reading skills what we can attribute to Clara reading? And I'm making it clear I'm not going to claim I know exactly what we can attribute to it. However, if we're getting a consistent picture of improvement that the teachers tell us wasn't there before, if we have students who want to do this, and if I have an entire group of teachers telling me it helps, then I think it's reasonable to claim there must be something that Clara Reid is doing. Point out to you that when we turned up at this school and said we'd like you to try using this, there was a normal teacher-like skepticism and resistance to change and I can't do things with computers kind of anxieties. Now, 3 years on, I sat with all 8 teachers and they've all been involved in this process all the time it's been there. We've been lucky with that. They are telling me how important they see it to be and how it's now an integral part of the way the school teaches reading. I talked to each pair of teachers teaching in class 1, 2, 3, and 4. And despite talking to them separately, I got a very consistent level of response. One of the things that struck me and heartened me enormously was their insistence, we get this in as soon as possible. The moment we find a child having difficulty with reading, we put them on Clara. I hope if anyone here considers using it, that's a message they will take absolutely to heart. Another really exciting thing was, I said, so how many of the children go, oh, I got to, when you say go and work on Clara? And they said, no. Now, I'm just a little bit worried that you're going to tell yourself, I'm painting an unbelievably rosy picture. But please accept, I went and talked to these teachers with expectations far lower than the results they were talking to me about. So, I'm telling you what these teachers told me. They said, if it looks like we're failing to remember it's their time to go and work on Clara, they will remind us very forcibly we're supposed to be doing it. They manage it very well in that school, and I'm not going to try and talk to you about management. I have written that up, and it will hopefully appear in our booklet that we currently produce, which will have been in your bag, but it'll have an extra 2 or 4 pages about how they manage using Clara in their school. One of the things teachers said was, no, we don't do anything new while they're out of the classroom. But they didn't see that as a problem. They actually saw that as an opportunity. It means we can stretch the others, but we don't introduce anything new. I asked them what they thought was going on, and I wasn't surprised that I didn't get kind of deep academic analysis of the process. They are practical teachers, and they were telling me the practical results. That the children are growing in confidence. They're growing in willingness to do exactly what Kabir was talking about, being such a horrible experience, reading in front of their peers. They begin to volunteer to do that. And crucially, eventually, they don't need it. The common theme, especially when they started talking to me about individuals, because I asked each of them, well, come on, think of a particular child in your class and talk to me about that child. So important to them that the children became more self-confident. One teacher did speculate a bit for me. She wondered whether the fact that the child determines the pace at which they work was important, which of course they can do. She was certain that the growing independence that the child felt was important. And several of the teachers said, well, I think they just like using computers. One teacher did talk about the importance of not getting stuck on Clara Reed. That was one thing she really worried about. And so she was much, much more positive about it now she knew that wasn't going to happen. The teacher normally advises the child, I don't think you need to go anymore. And if the child at times says, oh, I need a bit of support, can I go and use Clara? Then of course they'll be allowed. So, can I speculate about why this is so spectacularly working for them? I've got some suggestions. First, it's not going to surprise anyone, considering what you've been hearing this morning, that the process is multisensory. They're hearing, they're seeing, they're articulating for themselves, they're typing for themselves. Secondly, that they're able to work at their own pace and in the manner they choose. Now, with the best will in the world, we can't do that all the time for every child in our classroom. But at this point in their learning time, they're doing it their way. The independence that they can feel in doing that, they felt was certainly important. This opportunity to repeat in different ways, the speakers you heard earlier today were making that same point, weren't they? And this is the child's opportunity to say, what was that? As often as they need. I believe self-confidence to be utterly critical to being able to learn anything. I think the moment you've lost that belief in yourself, then the chances that you'll learn stuff have dropped almost to the floor. We used to say at Mark College, the first term for any child who arrives with us is trying to build their self-confidence back up. Went to have a lovely measure of that when one of the care staff said, this boy arrived like that. When he was walking around school, that's what he looked like. Now, it's not exactly a measure you can write down, but it's a measure you can see. And the fact that students consistently seem to look forward to and enjoy using it is, of course, hugely important. So, if you feel positive and increasingly confident, and you're able to work in a way that's appropriate to the way you learn, and you're in control of that, and teacher keeps saying, well done, you're doing better. It isn't very surprising, is it, if your learning improves? You've got an almost ideal set of circumstances. We know where we want to go next. This has been an intervention about reading. We want to try and see if we can do something similar with writing, because Claro has features that will help with that. A lot of features that will help with that. We've not gone there yet, because that felt a bit too much like more ambitious than we could manage. I'd like to just finish by saying something which has been going through my head in the last couple of days. A lot of you are special educators, and I've been frustrated by my difficulty to persuade special educators in the UK to grab hold of this and use it. And I've asked myself again and again, what's going on? Why not? I want to put an idea to you and just leave it as an idea for you to go away and think about. If I'm a teacher, I've got a whole room full of children. I give them information, I introduce them to skills, and then I have to say, now you do something. And of necessity, I can't stand by all of my children as they do that. I have to step back and watch them try. As a special educator, you are handed an individual children with difficulty. And your job is to try and help them out of that difficulty. And it's an exciting and lovely opportunity. I do that as well as having been a class teacher. But I'm aware that I get this tiny bit of precious time with each of my special needs children. And therefore I feel an obligation to be in there, working, helping them. And when we watched Musrat at work in the video, she was interacting with that individual all the time. I'm describing to you an intervention where you hand it over to the child and you step right back. You say, over to you. Now, if you have 1 hour a week with that child, or if you're really, really lucky, 4 hours a week, can you justify in that time saying, now it's up to you, and stepping back? And it's going to be difficult, I appreciate it. I appreciate that when I go to a child's house and the parent pays me quite well to spend an hour with their child, they might not be happy if at the beginning of the hour I said, I want you to do this, set them on the computer, and then shut up for 15 minutes. They might ask, what am I paying you for? So I think there's a challenge to special educators in particular. I think you should be enabling your learners to work in this way. I'm going to be adamant about that. I'm not going to apologise for saying that I think is vital. But we've got to find a way in which you build that into the way the child works. And that is a challenge. I'm not saying I have simple, straightforward answers to offer you. But I do hope that you won't dismiss the idea of using this kind of support alongside all the teaching you do, because I think it's vital.